Hello everyone, my name is Rebecca Valera, and today on The Little Things, we're going to be looking at some contracts. Oh yeah.
Let's do this.
Alright, so the very first thing that I like to do whenever I walk someone through making an offer, writing a contract, is to really just talk about what are we going to offer the sellers? Are we going to offer them what they're asking for? Are we going to try to go a little bit below that? Are we going to try to go above what they're asking for because we're competing against other people? What is the amount of money that you would like to purchase the home for? The next thing that I kind of talk them through and ask them about is, do you know what percentage you're thinking about putting down? Is it going to be 5%, 20%, 15%, 10%? What is that percentage that you're going to be putting down on the property? What's your down payment? The next thing we're going to kind of look at on the contract itself is going to be that earnest money. So typically earnest money is going to be about 1%. But then again, it's always negotiable. You can put down $1,000, you can put down $2,000. The seller is gonna like to see more. Typically, in most cases, you as the buyer are gonna be able to get this money back. The earnest money is also an amount that we're gonna need up front. I'm gonna have you write a check for it, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. One of the new parts of the 1 to 4 family contracts that's a little bit newer that I've seen recently has been survey insurance. Now it's written in our contract as to whether or not you as the buyer would like to have survey insurance. So what that means is if you're buying a whole bunch of land or you're not sure where your property ends and your neighbor's property begins, if there's no question as to where those borders and where those lines are, then I would say you probably don't need survey insurance. Now, survey insurance is very inexpensive. I've seen it as low as about $100. So it's very inexpensive for something that is gonna be more expensive if you have to ever go in and correct that. Now, when it comes to survey insurance, typically it's a buyer expense. However, everything is negotiable in a contract. Every one of those blanks is negotiable. So I actually, typically, if I'm representing the buyer, I'm gonna make sure that I check that box to where the seller's gonna pay for that for my people. The next part of the contract that we're gonna look into is gonna be the closing date. Now, typically your lender is gonna be the one that will dictate when and how quickly you can close. So we are gonna need to contact him or her and see when that date is. But typically I've seen anywhere from 3 weeks to a month is pretty normal as far as a timeline for closing. After the closing date, we're gonna kind of look at settlements. Now, if I'm the buyer and I'm needing extra money towards closing costs, or I'm wanting the seller to give me X amount of dollars to, let's say, fix the carpet or replace, things in the kitchen instead of what they've got with granite. So if I'm wanting the seller to cover some of that expense, or if I'm offering above list price and then I'm asking the seller to give me some of that money back in my closing costs, so that way I can go out and use that money towards those things right away, that would be another reason why I would put something in settlement. Now, there is going to be a limit as to how much money you can put in that box. It's gonna be based off of how much money you're putting down for the property, and there are also gonna be several lender requirements or lender limits when it comes to that dollar amount as well. Be sure you're talking with your lender and your real estate agent as to how much money you're wanting the seller to cover in your closing costs. So the next section is notices. And in the notices section, that's where you're gonna put where you're wanting to receive different notices. And you're typically just going to want to put an email address. Usually I'll have, if it's a husband and wife, I'll have both of you put your email addresses in there. If it's just one person buying the property, they would put their email address in there. We don't necessarily need to put a phone number in there unless there are other parts of the contract that's going to need that extra information. Now, if I'm the buyer, I'm also going to be looking to see what the new address is for the seller, so that way if I receive an email as the buyer, I can forward that information on to the seller. As we near the end of our wonderful contracts, I'm going to ask you how many days you'd like for the option period. So typically we've seen anywhere from 5 to 7 days. If I'm the buyer, I'm going to want a whole lot of days in there. But usually if it's more than 7, then the seller's really not going to be too crazy about it, and they'll probably ask us to revise it. And we can get everything done within those 7 days, unless there's a holiday. And if you have a great agent that's looking out for you, you for sure should be able to get through everything within 7 days and probably have a couple days to spare. As far as the option fee is concerned, so this is the money that you're going to be able to give the seller upfront as well. So this is another one of those upfront things that you'll need to do. I've seen anywhere from $100 to $250 being put in that blank. It just really depends on, if there are other people competing against us, what we need to do with that. And if we can get away with putting in $100 in, I say let's go for it. And that way we have, anywhere from 5 to 7 days to really inspect and look over the property really well. So before we submit our offer, the last thing that we're going to need to do is get a hold of your lender. So we're going to take a look at what amount you got pre-approved for, maybe adjust that number with the lender depending on what we're offering. Obviously, if you're putting an offer on a home that's $250,000 and you got pre-approved for $300,000, you're really not going to want the seller to know that you qualified for this much and that kind of thing. So we're going to need to adjust that amount with our lender, and the lender's also going to give us other pieces of information. They're going to let us know how quickly we can close,
or how slow we can close.
Typically, it's going to be about a month from contract to closing. They're also going to be able to let me know what your interest rate was. A lot of times it's mentioned in the pre-approval letter. What your loan type was, what their origination fees are, and also, how long is your note? Is your note for 30 years? Is it for 15 years, 10 years? What's the duration? What's the length of that note? So thank you all so much for watching. If this is your first time here, be sure to hit the subscribe button below and hit the bell for notifications. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like it and share it with any of your friends. I hope that this information was valuable to you and that you have a wonderful, fabulous day. See you soon. You got pre-approved. Gosh, I just dropped a blank. As to what type of, terms of the contract that would need, sorry.
Okay.